All right. Hello. Welcome to the Q&A. It is Monday, April 20th, and I hope that your weekend was at least somewhat enjoyable. You're able to get outside, do something fun. The weather was pretty nice. Hopefully, being in quarantine did not drive you too nuts. So today we're going to do a few things. We're going to talk about revisions for essay number 6, and we're going to talk about the homework that they gave in the AP class today. Today's class was a pretty short one. It was about 25 minutes, and it had to do with unpacking a prompt. In other words, taking an essay question and looking at the prompt and figuring out what you have to do. Because, that can be tough. They did bring up something interesting called the stable prompt. That doesn't mean a prompt in a stable. It means that all the prompts are the same. So the format is going to be pretty easy for you to understand. I'm pulling up my screenshot of the prompt that they had. Let's see here. Okay, so, and if you look at the notes from the April 20 class, AP review class, you'll see the screenshot too. But the prompt, you'll see, okay, this following excerpt is from it'll tell you when the novel was written, and it'll tell you who wrote it. It'll tell you a little bit about what's going on in the what's going to go on in the passage, so you kind of get a sense of what you're looking for, and then it gives you the task or the question that you have to answer. For example, for the homework in the class, they said just take a few minutes and unpack the prompt, figure out what you're supposed to do, get as much information from the prompt as you can. So if I were doing that, the first sentence, the following excerpt is from an 1852 novel by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Okay, well, I know that Nathaniel Hawthorne's an American author. I also know that in 1852, it was before the Civil War, so a long time ago in American history. So the United States was a lot different. In this passage, two characters who have been living on the Blythedale farm, a community designed to promote an ideal of equality achieved through communal rural living, are about to part ways. Okay, now if you paid attention in U.S. history, then you know that the utopian communities were put together. People came together. They said, okay, we're going to buy land. We're going to have a farm. We're going to work together. We're going to leave society behind, and it's going to be perfect. Blythedale Farm is the one that's in this passage. Perhaps one of the most famous ones from that time period was called Brook Farm. And these broke down for a number of reasons. Farm work is hard, and a lot of the people who moved into these communities were wealthy people living in the cities and thought, oh, it's going to be easy. We'll go out there, the crops will grow, things are going to be great. Well, farm life turned into a grind. You have to go from dawn to dusk or even later every day in your work. And a lot of people who had lived in the city, they'd never, touched a plow in their lives. They really didn't know what to do, and they certainly didn't want to work that hard. And so these communities often fell apart. Some of the communities also had, different ideas as far as, marriage and relationships, and some of them were communal in that way too. And so that caused a lot of jealousy, and the communities fell apart that way. But we have two characters who have moved to this area. They've moved here because they want to start a new life for themselves, far away from society, but now they're about to part ways. So there's been a conflict that we can anticipate. And then the task, it says, in a well-written essay, analyze how Hawthorne uses literary elements and techniques to portray the narrator's complex attitude towards Zenobia. Zenobia is the place where they lived, that at least one of them is about to leave, and the narrator is presenting this breakup. So when we talk about complex feelings, well, maybe the narrator sees one person's perspective, and maybe the narrator also sees the other person's perspective. You've been there. You've seen friends fighting, and you've seen, well, both of you have a point. Both of you really have a point. But, so you really are having a hard time taking sides, or maybe you do take sides, but you don't want to risk the friendship with the other person. So you're kind of like trying to hint. So this narrator apparently has we haven't looked at the passage yet. They'll look at that in the Tuesday class, and then it looks like Tuesday's class will move towards a thesis statement. But that's a lot to know. if you know those things. Now, if you didn't know those things, you at least know that it's the 19th century, and you could read the passage to see that they came together to live out in the country by them all together. Which, imagine. Now, maybe that seems interesting, maybe not. If like 5 or 10 or 20 of your friends like, hey, we're going to move out to the country, we're going to start a farm. That might sound neat, but it might also sound dreadful. Kind of depends on your perspective. But that's kind of how these things started. And but now these two friends who moved out there, they're about to not be friends anymore. So, or at least they're not about to live in the same place anymore. That's all we know so far. We won't see the passage till tomorrow, but that's just kind of a sense of how to unpack the prompt, figure out what you're doing. I also put up a video about revisions to essay number 6. I walked through pre-writing, which the way that I did it involved taking, I set up a Google Doc where I could pull quotes into that I thought would help. Once I figured out what the question was asking me to look for, I pulled some quotes, and then I split the quotes into 2 groups, and those 2 groups were the bases of the body paragraphs. And then I also put up a sample essay that I wrote and took you through it. I also put up samples of 3 people who got 6s. There were more 6s than that, but so next time we'll put up different people's prompts if they get 6s. But a lot of very good writing. Now, one thing I did notice is that about half of us haven't done practice essay number 6 yet. And I get it. I've talked to some of you. You got a lot of chaos, you got a lot of nonsense going on. But here's the deal. You're going to have to be able to find a quiet place to work to take the AP test. And so you're going to have, and it's going to be at 1 in the afternoon. So you're going to have to find a quiet place in your house at 1 in the afternoon on May 13th to be able to sit down and write. So that's something you need to talk to your parents and your siblings about. Hey, look, this is a big deal. So try and find ways, in your own lives to carve out that space for yourself. I get it. There's a lot of other stuff going on. A lot of people have lost jobs. A lot of people are, wondering, what's next week even going to be like. And I get that. But, the more work you can do for these, and if you're in multiple AP classes, the more work you can do for these classes. Sometimes it's hard to see, past the end of the week or end of the month, but the more work you put into these classes, the more money you'll save once you do get out of your house and go to college, because, pandemic is not forever. There's going to be a point when you get out of the house and you're able to move on with your life. It may be a little different. There may be some social distancing even into the fall, but things will ease. And so your life isn't coming to an end just because your senior year came to an end. So anyway, enough about that. Do you have questions? I don't see anything in Remind. So if you have questions you will get your essay 6s back today if you haven't already, and you'll have until Friday to do revisions. If you got a 5 or a 6, your revision is optional. Instead, choose one of the homework activities from one of the 5 classes this week, Monday through Friday, and turn that in. Choose the one that you think you need the most help with. Like if you have a hard time writing thesis, then you'd probably want to do tomorrow's homework. If you are thinking about other parts of the essay, then that would be your homework. Practice essay number 7 will be based on this week's classes in the prompt. So just bear that in mind, that's what practice essay number 7 will be about. I have a little work going on here at the house today, so you may hear an occasional noise going on. Questions, concerns? What do you get for late work? There is no penalty for late work. Turn it in. Turn it in, and you can get full credit. Because we understand that there's a lot of factors going on right now that keep, make it hard to get work in on time. And for those of you who still haven't done essay number 6, you can still turn it in. You can still get full credit. So, any other questions? All right. Well, if that's it, here's what we'll do tomorrow. I'm going to put together a video on lead-ins because a lot of us on our quotes on the essays are having a hard time with lead-ins, and I'll also talk about some other detailed issues as far as mistakes I noticed in a lot of the essays. So a lot of essays were good, lots of 4s and 5s and even some 6s. So I was very pleased. Just remember that in May, you can only have the 45 minutes. So if you went a little longer this time, that's not something that's going to be possible in May. So, but lots of good writing. All right, we'll see you here tomorrow.